gotten a number of emails from people asking my opinion of the Manhattan Declaration, a call of Christian conscience, and it's making the rounds and has about 275,000 signers. And let me just kind of read to you the preamble to this, to lay out the foundation for it. I'll give you some of my comments on it. Christians, when they have lived up to the highest ideals of their faith, have defended the weak and vulnerable and worked tirelessly to protect and strengthen vital institutions of civil society, beginning with the family. We are Orthodox, Catholic, and Evangelical Christians who have united at this hour to reaffirm fundamental truths about justice and the common good, and to call upon our fellow citizens, believers and non-believers alike, to join us in defending them. These truths are: number one, the sanctity of human life, the dignity of marriage as the conjugal union of husband and wife, the rights of conscience, and religious liberty. It goes on to state, inasmuch as these truths are foundational to human dignity and the well-being of society, they are inviolable and non-negotiable. Because they are increasingly under assault from powerful forces in our culture, we are compelled to speak out forcefully in their defense and to commit ourselves to honoring them fully, no matter what pressures are brought upon us and our institutions to abandon or compromise them. We make this commitment not as partisans of any political group, but as followers of Jesus Christ, the crucified and risen Lord, who is the way, the truth, and the life. Now, I don't want to be negative about this attempt in order to bring about changes in these particular areas. These are areas that we have been fighting for a very, very long time. I do believe, though, that this Manhattan Declaration leaves a lot to be desired, and my approach is going to be a little different from other critics. The drafting committee includes Charles Colson, Princeton University professor Robert George, and Beeson Divinity School Dean Timothy George. As I mentioned, there are more than 270 signers to this point in time. Family Research Council President Tony Perkins, Focus on the Family founder James Dobson, Al Mohler of Southern Seminary, President of the Alliance of Confessing Evangelicals Lincoln Duncan, and a National Association of Evangelicals President Leith Anderson have signed it. And there are a lot of prominent people who have in fact signed it. And anybody can sign it. If you'd like to sign it, you can go ahead and do so. I don't think it's going to do any good. I don't really think there's going to be any long-term consequences related to all of this, and I'll explain my reasons for this later on. Now, some evangelicals have not signed it. John MacArthur is one, Alistair Begg, and James White. And if you go online, you can read their reasons. They basically boil down to it's the ecumenical nature of it all, the fact that Orthodox, Catholic, and evangelical Christians are combining together for all of this, and also the fact that this is bringing non-believers and believers together. They call upon our fellow citizens, believers and non-believers alike, to join us in defending them. This is a huge mistake. I don't know why evangelicals just can't get evangelicals involved. That's where we need to really start. Start with your own people. They're the problem. You're not going to have common ground with secularists. I mean, you might get a few people to join you on all this sort of thing, but you have to compromise so much in order to bring them along, then in the end it means nothing. I agree with John MacArthur and others that the gospel isn't prominent in the document, although there is mention of the gospel. But my problem with John MacArthur on all of this is that there isn't anything greater than the gospel in this. And people say, well, the gospel is the greatest thing. Yes, it is the starting point of the greatest thing. What do you do after you come to Christ? What should we be doing? Just bringing other peoples to Christ? That's certainly the significant first step as well. But there are more things to the gospel than preaching the saving effect of Jesus Christ. Once a person comes to Jesus, what do you do? Do you sit in the church week after week just hearing the same gospel? Or do they get a full exposition of God's Word? And this is kind of the thing that I want to deal with here. But it's my guess that the Manhattan Declaration really is not going to amount to anything. And in fact, if you go back, like the Barmen Declaration of 1934, Francis Schaeffer's call for civil disobedience in his book A Christian Manifesto, which came out in the 1980s, the November 1996 symposium, The End of Democracy, the judicial usurpation of politics, and the 1994 Evangelical and Catholics Together, all these documents are defense only. They address events after the fact. It's essentially the world is going about its way, doing its own thing. The church has pulled up the drawbridge, has put up the ramparts to defend itself against the onslaught of a secular, humanistic, evolutionary culture. And now what we want to do is send missives out to the world and say, please don't hurt us. Here's what we want you to do for us. This is a huge, huge mistake. If you read Matthew chapter 16, Jesus states that the gates of hell will not prevail. The Manhattan Declaration and these other things have our roles reversed. We should be on the offensive. We shouldn't be the ones in the castle pulling up the drawbridge. We should be the ones who are affecting culture from the gospel first, and then the application of the Bible to every area of life, including the individual and self-government, family members and family government, ecclesiastical principles, elders and deacons and church members and church government, and the various forms of civil government. Now, we shouldn't be simply going out there and explaining, here's our, listen to our feeble attempts, please protect the church. This is exactly what happened in 1934 with the Barmen Declaration. It was an attempt to protect the church against the encroachment of the Nazi regime. You got Hitler becoming chancellor in 1933, and there were some statements made about this. You had Christians taking different sides. The confessing church comes out with the Barmen Declaration, but that Barmen Declaration was simply a defense-only document. It was simply to say, civil government, stay out of our domain. But it didn't address the broader issues of society. What role does civil government play in society? Is it neutral? Does it operate on the tenets of natural law? There isn't any natural law anymore. Again, these Christians are very naive who believe that there is some sort of common ground out there among the secularists. We live in a culture where humanistic Darwinism, materialism, reigns. That is the operating worldview going on today. The people in this present administration are secularists to the core. They only use religion as they redefine that religion according to their particular philosophy. Jesus Christ is a hero type. He doesn't come as a judge. He only comes as an affirmer to an already established secular worldview. Christians need to understand this. If we are going to set up a declaration, the declaration should be addressed to the church at large. It's to the church first. Judgment begins with the house of God. This is where this ought to be addressed. And if there are co-belligerents out there who want to join us, then they will join us on our terms, not forcing them to comply with the tenets of the gospel, but certainly to recognize that Christianity is foundationally a Christ-centered religion. It's an inside-out religion. Unless the heart changes, the mind and the hands cannot change fundamentally over time. And so while there might be some great sentiment in the Manhattan Declaration, in the long run, it will go nowhere. Christians need to develop an offensive strategy. And one of those would be, in fact, to begin to affect change fundamentally in the family, and that would be to take control of education and not turn our children over to the state.